All right, good afternoon. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about a new product that Blue's offering, which is the PLM connector. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. But first, let's kind of imagine a world where labeling product information becomes simple, it's trusted, and synchronized across the enterprise, right? So it's data that's relevant and important on your labeling that you can trust. And no longer do you have to go back and kind of question, is that product brief or information that maybe your brand manager or someone just gave you to go create a label is actually accurate. You know it is because it's controlled and it's seamless across the enterprise. Say goodbye to manually creating product briefs. So we've all been there where we've said, oh, we have a brand change, maybe there's an acquisition and the manufacturing location or distributed by statement has to change on maybe 10, 20, maybe 100 different pieces of artwork. No longer do we have to go in and create 10, 20, 100 product briefs. We can create one that instantly has all the different components that are affected by that change ready in Blue, so you can start creating your artwork files or other digital assets that are relevant to the product itself. And lastly, ensure proper control over product and labeling changes. So I'll talk a little about the information that are typically in PLM systems or product lifecycle management systems, but it's all the really important information about your product, right? So the ingredients, the warnings, any sort of certifications that are required, GTIN or barcode information, the formats that are relevant to it. All that information is typically stored in your PLM application if that's something that your organization has, or some other master data management location, right? And we'll talk about how this connector can connect you to those sources. And lastly, but maybe even most importantly, is helping to minimize your risk or your exposure to risk around product labeling. So if you have something wrong on a package, you have a decimal place incorrect, your usage or instructions are incorrect. I mean, someone can be sick, they can die from it. So this is serious things that we're talking about that you all know very well. So say hello to the PLM Blue Connector. So again, it's capturing your product information in PLM or other product data management systems and sending that directly to Blue seamlessly and creating your product brief automatically. So here's an example. So for those of you that do have a PLM application in your organization or have your data managed in some sort of system, the types of information that you see here on the screen is oftentimes that information that you have. So making sure that you have that. Now the trick is you got to make sure you have that data managed properly in your upstream systems, in your PLM application. But once you do, you can now connect that to Blue. So we heard earlier today kind of about Blue's strategy about kind of being open and being connected across the enterprise. This is probably one of the first presentations, and I think there's a few after me as well, that is going to start to talk about that, right? And saying the future is being able to take Blue and connect that upstream and downstream. And so really PLM kind of sits upstream. It's a design tool. It's what we call the single source of truth of your product information. So it's everything about that product under change control and certified and approved by the appropriate cross-functional individuals, so you know that it's trusted content coming into your labeling process. So what does that look like? So at a very high level, I call it the PLM platform. So there's many different types of PLM or product lifecycle management vendors out there, but I look at it as a platform perspective depending on how your organization is structured. So if you look at that gray box, that's what I call the PLM platform. There's many different tools that can be associated to it. In the center is kind of the core product record. That's where all that information is captured about your product, right? So if you think about a consumer products company, you may have, or food and beverage, you're going to have your ingredients, your formulation, all the raw materials that are in that formulation, all the certifications about that raw material to say, is that kosher, is it halal, could be one example. If you're in a life science industry, you're going to have your entire change control history. If there's some sort of quality incident, safety incidents, you're going to have that whole history back to say, we had a label change, so if the FDA audits you, we had a label change that was driven by what safety incident, right, or what change, and you have full audit history and traceability back and forth. There's some other things, so there's PPM, project portfolio management, managing kind of the product development or your innovation projects. You may have authoring design tools like recipe management solutions that can plug in. Some of these are embedded in PLM applications, some of these are separate tools that are kind of bolted on. But what PLM doesn't do well is the artwork management, and that's where Blue comes in. So Blue is a complementary application that can support PLM, and I view it as part of that PLM platform, part of your product information, right? and it's going to contain all of your digital assets and help you through the labeling development process. So let's take a little bit deeper look. So what does that mean? So if you look at this example here, so we have a blue spring water bottle. If you were to kind of break that down into the different components or different pieces of information, in this particular example, you may have a consumer unit. That's the assembled water bottle. Underneath that, you have a product, which is your water. And in that water, you may have different ingredients, additives, possibly a formulation associated with that. You also have the bottle itself, the raw bottle. You may have a preform, which is how the bottle is made or what the bottle is made from. And you have a closure or a cap. You may also have your pre-printed label, right? So you're going to have your label substrate, so that could be the paper-based label, the information about what type of material it is it recyclable, and then you're going to have your artwork file, which you see here, which we're all very familiar with. May have additional information about that as well in terms of the number of print colors, the print method, the coatings, all that information that's relevant to the teams that are creating the artwork files. You may have adhesives and other information such as manufacturers for each component, as well as at the consumer unit level. But what's really important here is that all the information that goes in that label is attached to one of those different types of items that you see there. So if you think about a bill of material structure, and you can see some examples here, all this information is stored at different locations. So you have product name, product line, brand, and many others at the consumer unit level. You have sustainability information about the bottle and the closure in terms of what types of materials are in there. At the ingredient level, you may have more information around certifications of those ingredients and what types of claims you can or cannot make. You may have some substantiation about the claims that you make captured in this product record. But what this connector is going to do is going to take all that information and it's going to send it to Blue, so then you can go and create that artwork or multiple digital assets. So in this example, I'm going to give an actual demo. A live demo. This product is actually available today. But if you look at the process steps here, it's representative, but the top part, we've built the first version of this in Oracle Agile PLM, so that's one of the applications that this is available for today. But the first step is where your cross-functional teams, your product development teams, will be working together to maintain and define that single source of truth about what that product is, all the information I talked about in the last slide. Step 2 is either automated or through a particular individual, can then send the information directly to Blue. So all that product information gets flown into Blue, it creates your project brief, and now in Blue you automatically have one-to-many components that need to have digital assets or artwork files created. And it goes through the typical Blue process that we've seen today and that you're all very familiar with. And at the end, so that's kind of steps 3, 4, and 5, you have an approved label file that can be a reference copy sent back into your PLM application. So for users that are in PLM and may not go into Blue, that needs to understand the status of where it's at, needs to see a reference copy that may not always be able to have the artwork file, they will have all that available to them. And you'll see that as we go through the demo. Okay, so I'm going to quickly jump into Agile PLM here, and I'm going to conduct a quick demo for you with the help of Christine. So this is Agile PLM. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time in here because many of you, some of you may have Agile PLM, may be familiar with this, others may not. But what's really important here is I've already created essentially a change order. So a change order is a vehicle to help make sure that all that product information we talked about is routed cross-functionally in the organization. It's built upon and approved to say this is what our true product record is. Now we have all this information. So this is a change order, and it's saying that can be either a new product being created or it could be a change to an existing product or label. And on this change order, you'll see a couple things. So there's a description. Let me zoom in here so you might be able to read that a little bit better in the back of the room. So for example, here's a description of what the change is. So for example, we use that Blue, so it's a new private label product launch for Blue Software's 2016 user conference. This change order requires the creation of a new label, the label number, and a new product image for the finished product. So that's essentially what's needed. As you go down here, you'll see that there's some customization, I shouldn't say customization, it's configuration that's completely flexible for your organization, where you have different information that's required to create the project brief in Blue. So you'll see it says, brief to be created in Blue. If I select my affected items, this is identifying the different items or parts that need a digital asset created within the Blue system. And you'll see that. So I have my consumer unit. So you'll see this 16.9 ounce spring water and also the printed label, right, for that item. You will also see that there's blue component status. So it says create product image. So I know I need for the consumer unit a product image, like a 3D render of what that product is. It may be something that you put on your website or an e-commerce site or possibly an app. And then you have your printed label. So it's going to say create printed component artwork file. So it's telling you in blue, or the person in blue, we need a artwork file created. Now, if I look at my consumer unit, for example, I can go down here, and I know it's a little bit difficult to see because I'm kind of zoomed in, but you will see there's a lot of relevant information that's going to be needed on the label. Container deposit requirements in the states that it's required in, warning statements, ingredients lists, label statements, recycle statements, product line, brand, private label customer, style, GTIN code or UPC format, the manufacturer, the manufacturer's location. All that information is stored within PLM. If I also go down to my printed label, we have other information about the print method. So it's Flexo, it's water-based, there's a UV coating, the printer is Package X, it's from Louisville, Kentucky. All that information is now will be available in blue, and you'll see that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and hit Actions, Send to Blue. And you'll see data submitted successfully up there. So what just happened is I took all that product information, and that can be anywhere in a product's bill of material, anywhere within PLM. It can send that information to Blue. It's going to now be creating the product brief in Blue, and you'll see, as Christine's going to come up here in a moment and log into Blue and show you real time how that project brief was being created. And she's going to show you the actual components that were requested, right? So one says create an artwork file for the label, create a product render or image for the finished product. And you'll see that, and then you'll see how she actually transfers that goes through the typical approval process. Once the artwork files or assets are approved, she's going to show you how actually all that product information is now in the DAL, and all that metadata associated to that label or that product image is also in the DAL as well. So it's pretty powerful stuff, and we talk about connected across the enterprise and seamless data. That's where we're moving with this. So Christine, please come up here and demonstrate the Blue side.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and log in. I have to log into the older version of Blue, not the new and exciting version. But now as I access the system, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the My Projects list. But the project was systematically created by the PLM system, and it also assigned me as the owner. So I would have also received an email notification from the system so that I know that there's a project out there for me. I'll go ahead and click on the name link for the project, and that opens up this project page. And when I expand the detail portion up at the top, you can see the description or the reason for the project and why it was created. You see a few metadata fields below that. And then if I scroll down a little bit, you could see there were 2 components that were created for the project as well. And when I click on the name link for the components, here's where you see all the metadata fields that make up that project brief. And you can see the data is all completed. So gone are the days of somebody having to manually key in this information for every single component on the project. Okay. Now, instead of going through and completing all the tasks within a project, I have a second project out here created, and I want to kind of show you how you close that loop. And what I mean by that is we have a sample project here, and in this case, it was created by the PLM system. I was assigned as the owner. We went through and we uploaded artwork, and it was rejected the first cycle, so then it was rerouted. I'm going to jump to the Files and Folders tab real quick too, just to show you, as a reference, what we did is we uploaded the file, and you can see here all the different metadata fields, but they're not yet populated. This is the artwork that needs to be modified and changed. So it was in fact rejected. and it has been approved. And the last thing that needs to happen is it needs to get transferred into the digital asset library. So I'm going to go ahead and perform that. You'll notice as I scroll the page, this is all the metadata. Again, that was not manually keyed in, but instead sent from the PLM system and assigned to the metadata fields in blue. Those same metadata fields are going to then be populated onto the asset when it's transferred into the DAL. So again, nobody has to manually key that information in. As I scroll the page, you'll notice the metadata was populated. And the last thing that I need to do is hit save. Complete the task and hit finish. Now, two things are happening now that I hit that finish. Again, the file, the approved artwork file, is being transferred into the digital asset library along with all of the metadata information attached to it. Additionally, a copy of that asset is being sent back to the PLM system along with a copy of the view feedback report. So here is the asset in the asset library. And if I click on the name link to open up the detail page, you can see all the metadata that, again, was not populated manually. It's consistent within the workflow as well as within the asset, as well as within the PLM system. And now if you were to go back into the PLM system, you can see that there's a copy of the asset and that view proof report.
Thanks, Christine. So if you look, so this is the other change. So again, the scenario here was revising a label to correct the GTIN number. So if I look at it, I can go in, and you'll actually see it says artwork file approved. So remember before in the other example where I actually said artwork file to be created, it is now saying artwork file approved. So users that are in PLM actually has visibility to the status of what's happening on the artwork development side. Same thing on the cover page. So on the cover page, the brief has been created in blue. So it's showing that there has been a brief being created, and so it's kind of a two-way feedback. But if I go into my items, I can actually now go look at my artwork file, and there's a couple cool things. So now, actually, the artwork file has popped up here. Same types of attributes around the information that hasn't changed, and I can go in as a user, and I can get or view my file if I need to as well. So it actually gives you more of a high resolution version. And you can see with this change now, it's actually showing with a corrected GTIN number. I'm not sure if Christine showed that, but the prior version did not have the correct GTIN number there, or UPC. And then lastly, one thing I want to show you is back on my change order, the other cool thing is it's showing full traceability of the audit report. So I'm going to open that up for you. And so as a PLM user as well, as that artwork file is sent back into Blue, right? And so, or I'm sorry, sent from Blue back into PLM, I now have a version of the approved artwork file, but I also have the audit report around that approval of the artwork file. So it shows complete traceability, both from cycle 1, where there was 1 approval, 2 rejections, back to cycle 2, where we have the approvals, which you'll see here. So kind of complete traceability on both sides, on the Blue side and on the PLM side. So where could this be useful? So we've had a client where, for example, they chose not to validate their artwork management solution, but they validated their actual PLM application. So they had full control of the product and its information in the validated solution within one application, and they have the audit history report, they have the approved artwork files at that time. So here's a few of the benefits of PLM, of this PLM and BLM or Blue Connector. So essentially, again, it's connected the data from upstream all the way into Blue, and then back into Blue, so you have one connected product. Again, full traceability, both on the artwork side and PLM to see audit history report, but also you can go into a change that's on a label, and you have full traceability back to when the product changed, why it changed, what was the reason for the change back in PLM. Again, you have full DAL access. You're using Blue to support all the labeling development processes that you need a specialized tool to do that PLM does not do well. There's a whole bunch of other ones that you can look at. We talked about track and trace. There's error handling. So for example, some product information is very complex. If there is a reason where, let's say, an artwork file is shared across multiple finished products, it will pop up errors or warning statements. So that's all built into the application itself or the connector itself. Auto generates the report, the auto report we talked about, and some KPI reporting. You can use Blue to track some of your KPIs. But lastly, so today, this PLM connector is available for all of you. It is built today with the Oracle Agile PLM. So if you do have Oracle's Agile PLM solution, then this connector would work for you. It's built in a modular fashion, though. So some of the other PLM applications that you see down here, this connector can be easily adapted for those. So it's just another adapter that we need to build onto it. So if there's interest in that, please talk to me or talk to your account executive to let them know that there's maybe an interest that you do have. Or if there's another master data management system that you have besides PLM where your product information, what I call the single source of truth around product information is, you can also talk to your account manager too, and we can identify if that's something that we can connect to as well. So thank you.